So now we had a kind of one or two paragraphs left in this essay by Freud. But I was thinking about it, maybe we don't need to finish this essay. It's kind of up to you. If you want, we can read the last two paragraphs. Or we can just move to the new book I wanted to read with you, Oedipus by Deleuze and Guattari. I thought probably that it will take us the whole session just to set up the scene and start looking at Deleuze and Guattari, but because I did promise you that we will look at the end of Freud, what do you think? What should we do? Continue with Freud or start Deleuze? Start Deleuze. Start new, okay. Fine. So, okay. And there is, in this seminar, we often try to make some connections between the texts we read. So first we read, for instance, Plato's Cave, and then Irigarei's critique of Plato. Yeah? So something similar is happening now, even though not completely similar. We read Freud, or at least we got a bit of a taste of Freud's main way of thinking. So before we move to this new text, can someone tell us in a few words, what did we learn? What are we taking away from Freud? What have we learned from Freud? What Freud taught us?
Everything's a trauma?
Everything is a trauma.
Well, everything that we have now comes from trauma.
That there is, yeah, and this is definitely important that there is that Freud understands the early stages of person's development in terms of trauma, and I acknowledge that completely. However, trauma is not what was the focus of the essay we read. Pleasure and reality. So, is that the reality side and that is the pleasure side? So, okay, can someone give us a little bit more details about the pleasure and the reality? Yes, because you're absolutely right. Freud understands the psyche, which is this strange Greek word, psyche, which is really pronounced psyche. It's just the English way of distorting foreign words, makes it sound like it's English, but it is really psyche, which is the Greek word for soul. Yeah. So, the way Freud understands the psyche or the psyche is that it's made essentially it's made of three parts, but one of them was not discussed in this essay. The three parts are ego, id, and superego. Superego was not discussed here, and we're going to deal with it later. When he speaks about the pleasure principle and the reality principle, he identifies a kind of the basic construction of the soul. Yeah? Because Freud's thinking and vocabulary developed over the 50 years that he was investigating the soul through psychoanalysis, also his terminology changed. Later on, he called the pleasure principle id. Id, yeah, and and reality principle, ego. Yeah? And there is even a famous essay by Freud that's called The Ego and the Eve. Very famous and really great essay, but it's much longer than the one we read. That's why we focused on this short text. So, what Freud says about the pleasure principle and the reality principle?
There would be regressed from the pleasure principle since we were after 3 years old.
Yes, yeah. Very good, very good. So essentially he says that the first stages of child's development, of child's life, are all given over to pleasure. The only thing, the only goal of this newborn baby is pleasure. Now, you remember what is really quite important is how at first, when you live entirely within the pleasure principle, you are kind of, even though the newborn baby is incredibly vulnerable, and is extremely exposed to elements, basically cannot do anything on its own. Freud says that paradoxically, this newborn baby feels itself completely omnipotent. Do you know the word omnipotent? Omni means all, potent means power. All powerful, like superhuman. Yeah? Why? Because whenever the baby has a problem, like hungry, stomach ache, or feeling wet, or feeling cold, let's say the baby is feeling cold. So, if you feel cold, you need to get off your ass, go and close the window, or put the jumper on, or turn the heating on. Yeah? The baby just needs to say, ah, 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 and lo and behold, suddenly, someone comes and puts a blanket over them, closes the window, holds it, goes, oh, you must be cold. And suddenly there is no cold. All it needed to do is to wave hands around. Yeah? So, that gives this newborn baby the sense that reality is completely in his power. I was thinking about it the other day because, as you probably know, I have 2 cats. And almost everything I know about philosophy I learned from my cats. So one of the things I was thinking about recently is how they really live entirely within a pleasure principle environment. Because when one of them is hungry, and it can be like, 4 in the morning, it doesn't be back to work, I could be deep asleep, I could be like having the most important dream of my life. But like Ludo or Freddy are hungry, so they come and say, or they, and lo and behold, food appears. It doesn't matter, because the cat always wins. That's one of the most fundamental rules of life. That the cat always wins. Anyone here has cats? Yeah? More or less. Half a cat. So, you know what I mean? There's no point arguing with the cat. Because they can just destroy your life if you don't do what they want. So, it just makes a bit of noise, food appears. Now, that is exactly how pleasure principle operates. He didn't need to go to the cupboard, open a sachet of food, put it in a bowl, none of that. Just make some noise, food appears. Make more noise, we can play. Make more noise, So whenever the need arises, it just resolves basically by wishing a different thing. So this is this omnipotency, there is this superhuman ability to create reality just by wishing. And Freud is saying, and I think it's really important also to understand the role art fulfills in human life. What art is for, according to Freud, is to allow us to reconnect with the state of being when the world is driven by a pleasure principle and not by reality principle. So, and it's very important in this essay, in the section in the essay, where Freud discusses the art and can you read it like this? It's a scan from book, so it's okay? Okay. So we read it, so I'm just going to go through it very quickly. An artist, well, we said, is obviously a man, originally a man who turns away from reality because cannot come to terms with a renunciation of satisfaction. So the artist is someone who is unable to accept the loss of pleasure principle, basically unable to go on. Unable to accept the loss of pleasure principle, unable to accept that it's all called necessity and reality from now on. The artist still fantasizes about a world that is all around pleasure, as the way it was when the artist was a little baby. And it was just all about sensual, erotic, physical pleasure. Yeah? Because according to Freud, this newborn baby is polymorphously perverse. I love it. Do you remember this expression? Polymorphously perverse. So first the baby is perverse because he derives sexual satisfaction not from intercourse, but from autoerotic operations. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes? Okay. So that's why it is perverse. Perverse because not in Freud's medical vocabulary, what does it mean to be a pervert? Anyone here is a pervert? What does it mean to be a pervert? It means to derive sexual satisfaction from activities that are not directly linked to procreation. Do you know what procreation is? Procreation is when you have sex in order to have babies. When your sexual pleasure is linked to making babies, you are not a pervert. If, and I'm sorry to tell you, if your sexual activity is not linked to making babies, then according to Freud, you are a pervert. Shame on you. It's a very peculiar way he uses this vocabulary. It's important to understand when he says what he exactly means when he talks about perversion. Yeah? Now, the baby is polymorphously perverse because all of its body is a sexual organ. It derives pleasure not necessarily from the genitals. The baby might not know that it even has genitals because all parts of its body are erotically stimulated. It could be, sucking a thumb gives a sexual pleasure. Defecating gives sexual pleasure. So, the artist is someone who did not abandon this connection with pleasure as basically the main dimension of life. And the artist fantasizes about situations that are driven by pleasure. The artist wants to be surrounded by beautiful, cuddly, soft, or hard, or painful, whatever is the fantasy. And the artist also has a talent or the ability to make images of these fantasies. Yeah? So the artist makes their fantasies not into reality. That might be someone like Berlusconi does, as Jamie was pointing out. Yeah? Someone like Berlusconi or Trump or these people who change the world to suit themselves. The artist doesn't really change the world, but he makes pictures, sculptures, performances, videos, installations that basically act out their fantasies. Now, what is interesting is that these fantasies made into pictures have an audience. Apparently, there are other people who also want to go into the world of pleasure. Perhaps they don't have the artist's ability to make images of their fantasy, but they have the desire to be in these fantasy worlds. So they go to galleries, to museums, to theatre, to the opera, to the concert, to a festival, to a circus, in order to spend some time in this world of pleasure, away from the reality principle. Yeah? So I think that is pretty interesting because it kind of gives you a sense of what people might be looking at when they're coming into your exhibition space. You know, and if you think back to the installs we had here over the year, sometimes you walk into this space, and I'm sure you experience it as the audience. You walk into the space after the work was installed, and you really have a feeling that there is something magical going on. You know, not every day. That's, I think, when the pleasure principle is somehow manifest in whatever way. And now, how do you do it is a mystery because there is no recipe. I cannot tell you, well, you know, you need to put something just at the entrance and then need to make the light like this. If there was a recipe, there would be no point doing it. There is no recipe. Each time, it's a sort of taking a risk. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And we cannot tell you how to make it happen. Yeah? But we can create an environment where you can have a go at it. And then we all kind of, somehow you know immediately when you walk into a space, you sort of know immediately whether you are in this special magical space or it's just a kind of everyday room with some things. Yeah? Okay. So after I think we're going to read a little bit from this section because I think it might be a good link to what we're going to do with Deleuze and Guattari. So the strangest characteristic of the unconscious. Could someone read to us a few lines? We are on page. That's a different book, but we are on page 225. Anyway, it is just the one before the penultimate paragraph of this text. The strangest characteristic of the unconscious.
The strangest characteristic of unconscious repressed process, to which no investigator can become accustomed without the exercise of great self-discipline, is due to their entire disregard of reality testing. They equate reality of thought with external actuality and wishes with it, just as happens automatically under the dominance of the ancient pleasure principle. Hence also the difficulty of distinguishing unconscious fantasies from memories which have become unconscious. But one must never allow oneself to be misled into applying the standards of reality to repressed psychical structures, and on that account, perhaps, into undervaluing the importance of fantasies in the formation of symptoms on the grounds that they are not actualities, or into tracing an erotic sense of guilt back to some other source because there is no evidence that the actual crime has been committed.
Let's stop here. There is quite a lot in this text. Anyone got any sense? Anyone knows what is it about?
Is it about like when you have a repressed memory that comes from a trauma or something that you repress, you don't remember anymore, and you don't have evidence to be assured that that happened?
There is that. There is definitely that as well. But what is the strangest characteristic of the unconscious? Is here. The strangest characteristic of the unconscious is the dominance of the ancient pleasure principle. The unconscious is where the pleasure principle lives, repressed. Why the pleasure principle is repressed? Because as Carlotta rightly said earlier, the pleasure principle is repressed because you've been told, first by your parents and then in the school, how to become a member of society. And in order to become a member of society, you have to repress some of your desire for pleasure. The problem is, as Freud discusses in other texts, is that this repression of pleasure tends to go much too far. Obviously, in order for us to sit here, I need to repress some of my instinct for pleasure, because if I sit here and I get thirsty, my pleasure principle says, just take this and drink, because you're thirsty. So I need to have some kind of rules that tells me, this is not yours, you might be thirsty, you still cannot take that even if you want to. Yeah? Otherwise, there will be complete chaos. Yeah? So some repression of the pleasure principle is important. The problem begins, and that's where trauma happens. And what is trauma? Is when this repression of the pleasure principle causes you to feel shame. Yeah? So for instance, imagine that we are in kindergarten. Yeah? So we are quite small children, let's say 5-year-old, yeah? Or 3-4-year-old. And I'm thirsty, and I take this and I drink it. Now, if, let's say, the person in charge there comes to me and says, what have you done here? You are a thief. You should be ashamed of yourself. What is this behavior? Put it back immediately. I'm going to tell your parents. Stand in the corner. And all these things, as they do, you realize that you've done something terrible. Your world kind of collapses on you because this huge, big person, 5 times bigger than you, stands over you like a kind of god and shouts. And you are there, you're really tiny. You look at it. You don't know what happened. You didn't try to steal anything. You were just thirsty. Suddenly, you just responding to your natural organismic needs is deemed illegal, immoral, generally bad. You are a bad person. You did something very, very bad. You're going to be punished by this massive, massive person that is so much stronger than you. Imagine someone 5 times bigger than you now coming here and shouting at you. You're like a big, massive gorilla. Yeah? You will be terrified because your life is in their hands. They can crush you like that. Yeah? Now, if you sometimes experience panic attacks in your daily life, if you have nightmares, that's where they come from. Because these traumas, even though you maybe forgotten how you were screamed at by some gorilla like this in the kindergarten, or it could be also your parent, these traumas don't go away. They stay with you, and whenever something tiny happens, someone just, said something not exactly what you expected over the phone, or ended an email without XXX, whatever, some kind of tiny thing that it triggers in you, it reminds you of this moment when this big person was shouting. And again, you feel that your whole world is turned upside down and you have no protection, and you're alone, naked, little, vulnerable. And there is like this massive big hole opened up in the ground that's going to swallow you. Because that is the experience of this little child. That's where trauma is coming from. And this is really important. That's, by the way, why therapy can have a really healing effect. Because it somehow can allow you, you can have a safe space in therapy where you can go through these motions, through these feelings, and look at them and experience them without having this sense of dread, because you do it with someone whom you learn to trust. So the unconscious is the place where the pleasure, the repressed pleasure, goes to live. Yeah? Because it's not disappearing completely. It's just stepping away from daily life, because you were taught in all these different cruel ways how not to act on your pleasure principle in your daily life. So, as I said, some amount of repression is essential. Too much repression creates neurosis and trauma. What is basically, well, Freud mostly dealt with people who suffer from neurosis. You know this. Neurosis, which is a disturbance of the nervous system. And neurosis essentially happens when the pleasure principle was repressed too much, when you were made to feel ashamed for simply being who you are. That's why, be careful when you say about, I'm making artwork about the unconscious. According to Freud, at least, you have no access to the unconscious.
Excuse me,
Yes.
is there any difference between conscious, subconscious, and unconscious? Because we are only talking about conscious and unconscious.
Yes.
And there is something,
Subconscious.
yeah, subconscious.
There varies that there is a pre-conscious as well, and there's a whole literature about it. But I just want to keep things very, very simple, and you might say even binary. I will take it later. Of just talking about the ego and the E, which means the conscious and the unconscious. Yeah. So we're not talking here about the subconscious or the pre-conscious. They all have their place, and if we spend longer studying psychoanalysis, we would look into that, but we don't need to for our purposes. It's just important to understand this basic formulation that the psyche, the soul, begins from pleasure, but everything to do with pleasure had to be repressed by society. Yeah, and so for that reason, I'm just going back to the point that I made earlier. Be careful around saying that you do, because you sometimes hear it. I'm making work about the unconscious. You cannot know the unconscious by definition. You can explore it with the help of a psychotherapist. You can also explore it on your own by, for instance, writing down your dreams and self-analyzing. And Freud explains how to do that. Yeah, but by definition, the unconscious is something we have no access to. We can access projections the unconscious produces in our dreams. And I don't want this to become another discussion about Freud, not because it is unimportant. Freud is fascinating and there's so much more to say. But yet because our time is limited and I want to move. And we will not going to leave Freud behind. We're going to all the time deep back into Freud. But I would now really want to move to unless there are any final questions about what the... Did you find reading Freud useful? Yeah, great, thank you. Well, I want to encourage you to read more Freud. And let me recommend one book for you. That is... it is this book, which you see you can buy for the princely sum of £1.48. So it is very affordable. It's wonderful. It's called Omnipotent Psychology, and it has things like Beyond the Pleasure Principle, where it talks about the death instinct, the death drive, the ego and the E, and other texts. It's a wonderful, wonderful book, and you will find it on the bookshelf of most artists I know. It would be a whole different discussion, the extent to which Freud influenced 20th century art, and how the two things can never be separate. But you can just think about the way people like Salvador Dali used Freud's notion of psychoanalysis, and Hitchcock, and it could be another discussion. But this is something I suggest you read on your own. Okay, and now we're making we speak forward. We spoke. The Freud wrote this essay on two foundations of mental functioning in 1913, and we are moving 60 years to 1973. 1973. So your parents were already around, I think, for most of you. Maybe some of you were around as well, like myself. But in 1973, it's kind of modern days. Yeah, is it ancient history, 1973, or is it contemporary? I had a discussion not long ago with someone who is applying for a PhD whether this book that was written in 1973 should be in the contemporary context or the historical context. For me, it was quite obvious this contemporary context, but for her, it was historical. I felt very old. So, 1973, France. A few years ago in France, there was this big wave of student revolts called the 1968 revolution. You know how the yellow gilets that this summer were still very active in France, burning tires. You know, the French, they really know how to do a protest. You know, they don't do like we do, like 2 days or 3 days. They just go for it, you know, without any ending in sight. The whole country stops because people are on the streets celebrating, building barricades, you know, singing songs, fighting with the police, and it can last for months and months. So these revolts started by the students in 1968, and then they were joined by the workers, and they were riots and demonstrations. The students basically demanded something, not entirely clear what. They wanted change. They wanted something different. They wanted to be taught in a different way. They didn't want to be taught Shakespeare and, you know, the Greeks. They wanted to be taught something much more contemporary. They wanted a very different idea of what does it mean to be free. At the same time, in Europe, it became quite clear that the communist socialist project of Soviet Russia and communist China was a disaster. From the news from China were of the Cultural Revolution and, you know, and the misery it caused to many people. The news from Russia were of the concentration camps, the so-called gulags, where people were incarcerated for 25 years for telling a joke, or, you know, and the socialists, communists, the left wing, the left-thinking intellectuals and students in France were kind of saying, well, this dream, this Marxist dream of a revolution that will make life better for everyone, that didn't work. And at the same time, America, United States of America, were involved in this endless war with Vietnam, which was broadcast throughout the world, and everyone could see the incredible stupidity and foolishness of this war that again caused untold misery and suffering for ordinary people. So the promise of a liberal democratic society that was kind of set up after the Second World War didn't seem to materialize. And that was the background for these riots. So the outcome was a big social change in France, and a whole generation of artists, intellectuals, philosophers that grew out of these riots somehow responded to them in their work. Everything we came to know as postmodernism coming after this event of these riots in 1968, 1969. And one of the most famous books that came out of this is Oedipus by two people, Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. So Gilles Deleuze was a philosopher trained by in the French philosophical education, and he spent 50 years of his life writing books first books about philosophers, then his own philosophy. And that is totally, it's not surprising that a philosopher writes a book of philosophy, that's what I'm familiar with. Felix Guattari, though, is a different story entirely. Felix Guattari was not a philosopher, he was a psychoanalyst. He was actually trained in the Freudian tradition of psychoanalysis. So he was basically a psychotherapist. But he was a militant psychotherapist. His approach to therapy and analysis was, to some extent, a rejection of some of the Freudian principles. He was trying to develop a different approach to psychoanalysis, a different understanding of the psyche, which is more modern, more contemporary. So, if you just look at the title, Anti-Oedipus, and the subtitle, Capitalism and Schizophrenia, there is already a lot we can think about here. So, Anti-Oedipus, what do you think about the title?
This is some words.
Uh-huh.
So the word anti is against,
Yes.
and Oedipus, I mean, it has different meanings, but the one that is probably closer to what is meant is the Freudian structure of the family.
Yes.
And the relationship between the child, father and mother.
Yeah.
Where child prefers the parent of the different gender and rejects the
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely right. And very, very well put. So, anti is against. Anti-Oedipus. Think about what does it mean to be an anti-hero? Anti-hero. Anyone here is an anti-hero? Do you have any heroes or anti-heroes? In popular culture, it's a very familiar concept, the anti-hero. I think Batman is in a sense anti-hero, no? You know Batman? Yeah. Is an anti-hero. Anti-hero is, what is anti-hero? How do you understand it? Can you help me? I really would like to know what you think.
The hero that people need.
It's a hero, but it's not a kind of a nice person. Yeah? So anti-hero is very much part of counterculture. That's a very important term, you know. What is counter? Counter is against. Counter-reformation. It's against. Counterculture is against culture. Against in the sense of stream of going against the flow. Yeah? It's very important. Now, there are some cultures where counterculture is not allowed. When, for instance, some forms of art, of poetry, of theater are forbidden because they are subversive. They are subversive lately. Subversive. They are countercultural. They are against the existing order. They are challenging. Yeah? And the level of freedom in the culture can often be measured by the way it tolerates anti-heroes, countercultural events, you know. And it's important also that you think about your practice in terms of whether it is countercultural and subversive, you know, and how and what elements within it are against the general flow of culture. Yeah. So, for instance, this journalist in China who was reporting from the hospitals where there is the coronavirus, and I think he kind of disappeared recently. That is an example of someone who is countercultural. To be countercultural means to produce culture against the norm of society. And that can be in some situations extremely dangerous. And even when it's not dangerous, it can make you an outsider. Yeah. So the anti in the title of Oedipus already has this element of subversion, of something counter, of something radical. And I wanted to really have this. It's a nice little thing. You can add it to many things, and then you get a different meaning. So try to add the anti to, what, let's say, what will it mean to do an anti-seminar? We have a seminar here. What a counter-seminar or an anti-seminar would look like? Yeah? So just think about it. What happens when you add anti to something? It sort of suggests an attempt to break through some conventions. Yeah, it can be very potent. Okay, so an Oedipus is, as Anna said, it can mean many things. The origin of the word Oedipus is the Greek tragedy by Sophocles, by Sophocles. Oedipus Rex, Oedipus the king. It would be lovely to read it with you, but I will just tell you very briefly the story of Oedipus, so you have the idea. So, because people often get it in the wrong way, but I want you to understand it in the right way. So there were a king and a queen living happily somewhere in Greece, and there was a prophecy told to them that they will have a child, and this child will murder the king, will kill the father. So when the child was born, they took the child to the forest or to the mountain and just left it there to die. Although they asked a shepherd to take the child to the mountains and leave it there to die. Yeah? People often forget this beginning of the story. Oedipus is essentially a story of infanticide, another very nice word. Infanticide is murder of children. Infant is a child. Yeah. So Oedipus begins with the story of how this king decided to get rid of their baby because there was a prophecy that this baby will one day kill the child. Now, the shepherd was, a normal person, couldn't really leave the child to die. So he took this child to a different place and gave it to someone else. And the child didn't die and ended up adopted in a different environment. And the child then grew up and became a young man and went out to seek some adventures and met the Sphinx, but I'm just going through it very quickly. And at some point the child is going down some road and has a confrontation with some other people on the road, like who needs to give way, and they have a fight, and he kills someone, and he continues and goes to another city, the city of Thebes, and the city is in mourning because the king just died. And he comes to the city, and then there is this Sphinx, and the Sphinx asks him a riddle, and he answers the riddle of the Sphinx. Anyway, he gets introduced to the widow of the deceased king. He marries her. They are very happy. He becomes the king of the city Thebes. He lives very happily with his wife Jocasta. They have children. Everything is going swimmingly, as we say, and that's the good story. No, because suddenly, after some time, terrible plague. You remember the plague? Terrible plague comes into the city. People are dying like flies. There is no remedy for it at all. So what to do? No sacrifices to the gods help, nothing helps. Eventually, they call the elderly prophet who lives in the city. He is blind. The prophet comes to the palace, and they ask him, the king and the queen, well, what can we do? Can you help us save our city? People are dying. And the prophet says, well, I don't know how to tell you that, but what is happening now is a punishment for what you've done. So Oedipus, the king, says, well, what do you mean with that? And then it transpires that Oedipus, when he had this confrontation on the road, on the way to Thebes, and killed someone, he killed the king, who was his father. And then when he entered the city, he married his mother. So he killed his father and married his mother. And that's why the city is punished by a plague. So the end of the story is that all his children, not all his, but his children are, some of them commit suicide, some are sort of in mourning. Jocasta, the wife, goes to the room and kills herself, and Oedipus, the king, takes Jocasta's brooch and blinds himself, puts his eyes out, so sticks sharp long needles into both his eyes and blinds himself as a self-inflicted punishment for what happened. The plague stops, and that is kind of the end of the story. So in this story, it's a story of a single person's destiny. It's a very different story from all the usual mythological stories about gods. It's just about a normal person who was very, very unlucky, just really very unlucky to kill his father and marry his mother, and that, in that way, the prophecy was fulfilled, because the father was told early on that your son will kill you. Yeah, and yeah, it's a great story. It's a great tragedy about fate, and destiny. And if you have a chance to see it in the theater, you should definitely see it. If you don't have a chance to see it in the theater, there is a wonderful film by Pasolini. Oedipus Rex. It's beautiful. It's a really, really beautiful film from 1967, more or less at the same time when Oedipus was written. So you can also watch that. It's very good. There are many other famous interpretations of this story. Now, so that's the story. Freud uses this story in order to speak about the universal condition in which a child at the second stage of puberty, around the age of 11 or 12, and I think I spoke about it with you in the previous session, to put it very simply, realizes that they want to take the place of the father in the family. And taking the place of the father also means being intimate with the mother, because that's what the father does. Yeah? Taking place of the father also means taking daddy's toys away from him, you know, his car, his horses, whatever. So Freud identifies that as an essential element of everyone's life, without exception. For Freud, whether you are a male or female, it doesn't really matter. You can love your daddy very much. It doesn't really matter at all. Everyone will go through a stage in their life when they will want to basically take over daddy's life. Yeah? Again, parents manage that in different ways. Some parents understand that as a child grows up and becomes gradually becomes a grown-up, they will want to take a bigger share of the resources of the family, of the responsibilities, and of the roles that the father has. At the same time, as the father naturally grows older, maybe the eyesight is not as good, maybe not as strong as used to be, and gradually the children want to take on. Anyone who saw this series, Succession? Yeah? Succession. It is on Amazon Prime, I think. And it won some of the biggest awards this year. So this TV series is about the family. It's precisely about the Oedipus complex. It's about the family with an elderly patriarch, sort of very rich, very powerful person who is now 80-year-old, and his health is not as good as it used to be. And the three children basically want to take his place. And he says, no bloody way, over my dead body. And they say, well, if that's what you have to, then we do it over your dead body, but we want to take your place. And the struggle between a very powerful person who becomes frail and weak, but still wants to control everything, and these young people who are very full of energy, very full of ideas, but daddy stands in the way of them growing up and becoming fully developed people. Yeah? So what do? Do you say, well, Daddy, you're the greatest and we're always going to be there, we're always going to learn from you? Or you say, listen, Dad, time has come for you to take your slippers and go watch some telly and we will now run the business. I think it's a real problem that everyone has to somehow deal with in their own family. So Succession is exactly about that. Okay, so for Freud, you see, well, the most important point is that everyone goes through exactly the same road. And that's precisely what Deleuze and Guattari are concerned about. They are worried about this universality. There's this notion that one solution, one answer to all problems. You go to a Freudian psychoanalyst, and they will analyze your dreams, and they will analyze your unconscious, and they will show you in what way your relationship with your mommy and daddy are the reason for all the problems you have right now. Yeah? And this sort of one-size-fits-all solution, that's what causes Deleuze and Guattari to say what we need is an anti-Oedipus. Right, so that was a long conversation about a very short title. Let's have a 10-minute break. Okay, come back here at 5 minutes past 12. There's one last bit of the title that we need to discuss before we move on to the actual stuff. I'm really looking forward to it because I think this book, while famously kind of crazy, it's also a lot of fun. And we'll see if we think about it. But, so we saw what the anti-Oedipus means. Now, at least what it could mean. The subtitle, Capitalism and Schizophrenia. I think this is interesting because it shows you essentially what does it mean to make an artwork. That's how I want you to understand that. Both anti-Oedipus and capitalism and schizophrenia are in a sense kind of mini, micro artworks. Because you take Oedipus, which is a classical drama, tragedy, and a Freudian concept, a universal, there is this it's such a cultural cliche, the Oedipus complex. Whenever someone says that, they really kind of like the mother or something like that, you can always say, oh, Oedipus, it's such a familiar cliche. So you put the anti in front of it, and it becomes something completely different. And I just encourage you to play with these kind of things. Like, what happens when you add an anti to that? What a Well, I don't drink coffee any longer, but what an anti-coffee will be like. You know? Is tea anti-coffee? Well, I don't think so. You know?
Well, if anti-Oedipus isn't necessarily about medical, but
Yeah.
more so about like looking beyond the really hard line structures of like psychoanalysis,
Yeah.
then anti-coffee would be, if that was the context, anti-caffeine.
Maybe it also would be about, coffee became like a universal menace. Like, it almost seems like this universal fuel everyone is operating on, No one can just do anything without having a cup of coffee first. So even some cars now run on electricity, not all run on petrol, but it looks like humans run only on coffee. Yeah? Now, what about some kind of alternative energy source for humans? Why do we even need to begin the day with a powerful stimulant? What are we going to face during the day that requires us to load on, basically to take some kind of, it's like a performance-enhancing drug, basically. Isn't that what caffeine is, yeah? It wakes you up, it makes you sharper, it makes you work harder. Why do we need to work harder? Why do we really need to be so awake? What's wrong with being really sleepy? So, then if you really want to take the anti-coffee seriously, maybe it's about saying, what's wrong with this society that you all the time need to be at your peak performance? Why do we need to be such high achievers? What is there to achieve anyway? Because you drink your espresso, you go to work, and then what? You have an Excel sheet, and you move some numbers from one column to another, and you really need to be like on 3 espressos to do that. So and then you come home and then you need to take some kind of relaxant because you are so wired from the coffee that you need to have a drink, a joint, Maybe if you didn't get so wired in the first place, you will not need then to take tranquilizers in the evening. Yeah? So that's what anti-coffee might look like. Yeah? Anyway, I went here on a bit of a rant. I'm sorry about that, but I've been thinking about coffee for quite a while. Also, I think about what about all this coffee ground that gets thrown away from these machines? It's still very potent stuff. It's full of protein, for instance. And just the amount of it. And another thing, I have to say, even though I'm going to stop in a minute, all these sort of like cappuccinos and lattes and flat whites take like 5 minutes to make. The queue for the coffee is like across the whole canteen because everyone needs this sort of, like jeweler-produced cappuccino. If you just drink a filter coffee, you get basically the same caffeine hit, and it just kind of comes from a jar. So for a long time, I was the only one in the queue who always asked for a filter coffee. It's also so much cheaper. But now I completely stopped drinking coffee because I just save so much time. I don't need to stand in the queue. I just drink hot water and I put the tea bag in my flask and I drink it. I think it saves me at least an hour a day or something like that instead of queuing there. Anyway, I stopped now. Anyone else has any thoughts about coffee?
Yeah, basically like not drinking coffee at the same time. If you're taking coffee to perform, then not drinking coffee at the same time makes you ask like, what are you saving the time to do instead?
Well, to drink.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you can do with the anarchism. Yeah? But capitalism and schizophrenia. Now, it's an interesting trait. Schizophrenia and capitalism. You don't often see these two words together, yeah? Because, capitalism. What is capitalism? Very simply, what is it?
Make money for money.
Sorry?
Make money for
Make money for money. Okay, it's a financial system, basically, yeah? It's a financial system. So, how do you call people who deal with capital?
Capitalists.
Capitalists. And people who analyze capital, Economists, yeah. So if you have a problem with capital or with capitalism, if you want to learn about capitalism, you will read books on economics, probably, yeah, or maybe books on politics or something like that. Fine. Schizophrenia. If you want to learn about schizophrenia, do you read books about economics? No. What books do you read? About psychoanalysis, about psychology, because schizophrenia is a name of a mental disorder. Yeah? So, what happens when you put, so there is, if you go to a university, a proper university, where, and you will go to the department where people study capitalism, it will be the Department of Economics. And if you go to the Department that studies schizophrenia, it will be the Faculty of Psychology or Psychoanalysis. There could be completely separate buildings. The people who teach economics and people who teach psychoanalysis might never even have a cup of coffee together. They are in completely different pathways, probably different from the days they were in school. Yeah, it's just different trajectories. So what happens when you take two things which are really belong to different branches of knowledge and put them together? That's exactly what artists do. You take things that don't belong together and you put them together and then something new happens. So again, just like with an anti-coffee, you can try that with whatever it is you want. Yeah? So what happens when you put capitalism and schizophrenia together? Well, one thing immediately comes to mind. Maybe schizophrenia, which is a mental disturbance, a mental disease, maybe it's caused by capitalism. What if you become ill? What if the economic system you live in, what if it makes you ill? Not. What if the reason for your psychological problems is not that you want to kill your daddy and have sex with your mommy, but that you are being exploited in your workplace, or that you are being, that you live in a capitalist system? What if the reasons for your mental problems are not the repressed trauma, as Freud says, but that you have a really shitty, boring job, and you sit there every day and you see your life being wasted, and that makes you so anxious and upset? Yeah? So, what if, to solve your psychological problems, you need really to speak to an economist? And what if, on the other hand, if you want to understand why people are so willingly accept that they are being exploited in the factory or in the office, why people accept spending their life doing some kind of boring, mindless job, the answer to that is not economics, but psychology. Maybe people like to be told what to do. Maybe people like to have a boss that shouts at them. Maybe it really reminds them of their daddy, you know? So what if, to understand economics, we need to look to psychology, and to understand psychology, we need to look to economics? What if instead of having the Department of Psychology and the Department of Economics in two separate buildings in the university, what if we make one department of capitalism and schizophrenia? And we put economists and psychologists and therapists all work together. Well, wouldn't that be a kind of interesting thing? Well, guess what? Central Semantics that you are in now is kind of based on that idea. That's why you who study photography for your masters can spend your days in the metal workshop or in the computer workshop, or you can work with casting or ceramics or 4D or physical computing. It's this kind of thing. Yeah? What happens if instead of keeping things in their separate categories, we put them together? Yeah? So we're kind of living the capitalism and schizophrenia experiment in this building. That's why it is a very special place to study. Very often, but I just have to tell you that, when I interview people, and I guess I interviewed quite a few of those of you who are here, and those who I didn't interview were interviewed by Pat. but we interview in a very similar way. One of the first questions we ask is, why do you want to study on this course and here in Central Martins? And well, very often people say, oh, because Central Martins is such a famous institution. So those people who gave this answer, they are not here. You were all smarter than that, you know. But when people talk about, for instance, the opportunity to explore other disciplines while being here, then I just think that's something who actually understands what Central Martins can offer that is not available in other places. And somehow this is also connected to us moving into this building. For that reason, when we often in stalls, we say, well, in what way your work actually relates to the building? It's also, the building also encapsulates a certain philosophy, which you don't need to believe in or accept, but acknowledge that there is something special about, or there is some kind of meaning to all these big glass windows that make it very transparent what we do here. Yeah? In a traditional art school, everything is walled out. And if you are in the painting department, then you don't really go to hang out in the sculpture department. Yeah? And it's all sort of quite closed off. And here, the whole design of this building is attempting to do something that will be open. I'm not saying it's working, I'm not saying it's, but there's definitely a way to read this building in terms of attempting not to erect boundaries between disciplines, but to remove them. Yeah? And the philosophy of this architecture is connected to what Deleuze and Guattari established when they put capitalism and schizophrenia together. So it's another way to start thinking about your practice in terms of how unconnected things, what happens when unconnected things are put together. Simply put together, something new might emerge. Okay, I don't want to talk anymore. I want now for us to listen to Deleuze and Guattari. Okay. So we'll start from section 1. It's a big book, about 700 pages. We're obviously not going to read all of it, not even a small part of it. But I think reading Deleuze and Guattari is an incredible adventure. Is more adventure than probably everything we read so far. And it's a bit like a roller coaster ride. You need to have a certain attitude to that. So can I ask Will, is that okay? Yeah. To read from the top. Now the title is Desiring Production. Let's just, 1 second, let us think about the title again. So just like capitalism and schizophrenia, that they took two separate unconnected things and put them together. It's like saying flask notebook, capitalism and schizophrenia. Do they belong together? Do they connect? But what if they do connect? What if you design a device that you can drink from and write in? You know? I don't know, it could be the stupidest thing ever. But it also may be something quite interesting because everyone is carrying some kind of bottle with them. Yeah? And everyone is taking some notes. So what if you think about how these two things can become one thing? Anyway, so design production is something a little similar to capitalism and schizophrenia. What is production? Production belongs to what? To capitalism or to schizophrenia? To capitalism, that's right. Production. You need to be productive. Are you being productive? You know, how productive have you been this year? We're going to have an evaluation. Yeah. Productivity. The first thing you do when you need to write an essay, you start researching productivity apps. Yeah, which is the best way not to do anything. Yeah. So there is this kind of obsession with productivity. You know how many productivity apps I have on my computer? It will be embarrassing to let you know, but here is one for instance. read. It's actually it's a really good. It's a really good productivity. So I have here various things that I have to do and done and productivity for my various projects. So productivity, being productive, and desire. Desire belongs to what? Capitalism or schizophrenia? Schizophrenia. Desire is clearly Freud's domain. Let's think about the title in terms of the foundations of the mental functioning that Freud talked about. Production. Is it the pleasure principle or the reality principle? The reality principle. Desire is reality principle or pleasure principle? Yeah. Now, you see how reading Freud already gives us a hint what Deleuze and Guattari are going to talk about. They say, maybe they are not two separate principles. What if we put them together? What if there is a desire to be productive? What if there is a pleasure in productivity? And what if there is a productivity in desire? What if it is productive to experience pleasure? We are always taught that to be a productive member of society, you need to suppress your pleasure. You need to repress it in order to be realistic and do what you're supposed to. But what if, in order to be productive, you need to enjoy production? What if only if you enjoy what you do, you're actually going to do it well? So, would you say that making art is desiring production? Because it is both. You make something, but you kind of really need to want to do it because no one is forcing you, unless you're on this court or when you're unfortunately forced to make art. But no one is forcing you generally to make art. So to be an artist, you need to desire to paint, to sculpt, to write poetry, to perform. Yeah, you need to want it, and yet it is also a form of production. Okay, Will.
Desiring production. It is at work everywhere, functioning smoothly at times, and at other times in fits and starts. It breathes, it heaps, it eats, it shits and fucks. What a mistake to have ever said the it. Everywhere it is machines. Real ones, not figurative ones. Machines driving other machines. Machines being driven by the machines, with all the necessary couplings and connections. An organ machine is plugged into an energy source machine. The one produces a flow, but the other interrupts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth, a machine coupled to it.
It's easy.
Oh, it is.
And the mouth is a machine coupled to it.
The mouth of the anorexic wavers between several functions. Its possessor is uncertain as to whether it is an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, or a breathing machine. Asthma attacks. Hence we are all handymen, each with his little machines. For every organ machine and energy machine, all the time flows and interruptions. Judge Schreiber has sunbeams in his ass, a solar anus, and rest assured that it works. Judge Schreiber feels something, produces something, and is capable of explaining the process theoretically. Something is produced, the effect of a machine, not mere metaphors.
Thank you very much. Okay, so, hello. You still here? Okay, so what's going on? What do you think Will just read for us?
Very nice counterpoint to Freud.
Oh?
A very nice counterpoint to Freud.
A counterpoint to Freud, in what way?
In that, by claiming that calling the A that it and it a mistake. They're really suggesting that existing is everything outside of the psyche, or however you pronounce it, is the machine.
Yeah, but not only outside the psyche, but the psyche as well.
Okay.
They say, Deleuze and Guattari, they say, eat. Let's read it like this. Eat is at work everywhere. Now you remember I told you that the German, it would talk about the ego and the id. Id and that was a Haiti, but Id in German means eat. Does it make sense to write it down? Eat. Yeah? So, the name Freud gives for the pleasure principle is it. It, like it is. And when they say it is at work everywhere, we can also read it as id is at work everywhere. Yeah? You can read it like this. Id is at work everywhere. What is id? Remind me again? Is the pleasure principle. Yes? Are you okay with that? Id is the pleasure principle. So, the pleasure principle is at work everywhere. If you just understand this one sentence, you covered a large part of the book. That's why, sometimes when I talk to to other people, friends of mine who teach philosophy in other universities, they sometimes get horrified when I tell them that my students, I don't ask the students to read whole books. If you don't read the whole book, this is not serious. What kind of, I don't even ask you to read whole chapters of books. Sometimes we just read one sentence, and it can be enough. One sentence read well can go a very long way, in terms of just changing the way you think. It's not about reading a book from cover to cover. This one sentence, id or it, is at work everywhere. Just think about, just try to really let it come to you. What we are saying here, desire, pleasure, goes to work. Yeah? It's not that you need to leave desire at home, suppress it, let it sit quietly in order to do work. That's Freud. Yeah? No, they say, if you want to go to work, the thing that gets you to work is desire. Why you are here today? Well, obviously because we're fascinating seminar. But thank you. And also because you have to be here. But also because there was a desire. It tore you from your bed, got you out into the shower, then into your shoes, then the coffee obviously, and now you are here. And if I didn't have the desire to be here, would I really be here today? I don't need to teach this seminar. I could easily do something else. And that other lecturers who don't have the desire to teach a seminar, they don't teach a seminar. They do something else. They do, I don't know, gallery visits or something, But the reason they have this seminar is because my own desire gets to work. And the reason you are here is because your desire is also somehow bringing you here. Otherwise, if you didn't have any desire, would you really still be here? You see what I mean? So, id is at work everywhere. And as James said, this is an interesting, this is a very sharp reply to Freud. The Freudian analysis is that society operates by repressing the id, by repressing desire. And Deleuze and Guattari, writing 60 years after Freud, say, not so. If you want to understand how anything is getting done, you need to understand that there is a desire that drives action. Yeah? Yes, Jamie.
So during the Freud seminars, I wrote a little note as a side note that a lot of behavior or certain machinations in the world is out of friction between the reality and the pleasure principle. Would that, as an idea, apply more to Deleuze and Guattari's writing here, or to Freud's own writing?
Well, because you see, who spoke here? I think it was Danny who spoke about non-dialectical approach. Now, you might say that Freud is quite dialectical because he has these two opposites. You know, the desire principle and the pleasure principle, and they're kind of at odds with each other, and your everyday behavior is a kind of synthesis.
Okay.
Yeah? Now, for Deleuze and Guattari, it is not the case. The desire and production are completely intertwined. They're not like a plus and minus in a battery that produce energy. You know, that's a dialectical understanding. They see it like, you know, here you have a sheet of paper with desire on one side and production on the other. You cannot split it asunder. You cannot separate it. It's not dialectical. It's basically the same thing. Desire is production. Production is desire. Yeah? Desire is productive. Well, for one thing, it's productive of babies. But it's also productive of pleasure. Yeah? It's productive to desire. If I desire someone, it involves activity, agency. It throws me into the world in a certain way. And if I make something, if I build a wall, if I mend my car, if I wash the windows in the house, there is a desire that gets me to do that. Why do I spend my Saturday washing the windows of my house? Yeah? Well, they say the only way to understand it is to figure out in what way your own desire gets you to do it. You know? If you, according to the Freudian, to the strict Freudian analysis, it's the superego that tells you, look at your windows, that's complete mess, you are an embarrassment, get off your fat ass and wash the windows. Yeah? But they don't accept it. They say, no, that would never be enough. You need to actually want something. And this want, this desire, this pleasure that you will get from the windows being clean, that's what makes you do it.
So that's basically the future.
Sorry?
Basically the future aspirations, right?
No, it's not the future aspirations. It's
What will happen after?
have you if you do something kind of DIY at home, like putting a shelf, yeah? Now, you might say the reason you put a shelf on the wall is because you want to put your books on it, you know? But then also there is a certain pleasure in taking the drill, attaching the bit, making a nice hole that is just the right size for the plug, inserting the plug, and kind of satisfying how it goes in and just really fits, you know, taking the screw, and it really sounds very sexual, doesn't it? And you know, that tiniest, and then it just sits there and it's just at the right level, and there is a pleasure in that. And you then stand there and say, you've done it. You know, it's not about the books you're going to put there anymore. There was a pleasure in just doing it. That's what they're after. And they say, if you don't understand to what extent every action in the world is connected to pleasure, you're not going to figure out why capitalism is so successful. Somehow, and we need to figure out how it happens, capitalism manages to harness our desire and maybe even use it against ourselves. Yeah, we need to see that. But if you're not going to understand to what extent we actually want to do something, even just as mundane as stacking shelves in a supermarket or driving a van, or, you know, if we don't understand to what extent desire is the engine of production, we're not going to understand how exploitation and capitalism can become so overwhelmingly successful. So it's a very radical shift they do here. Now, it's also in the same way that this desiring production attacks the Freudian analysis, it also attacks the Marxist analysis. Now, we didn't read Marx here, and maybe we should. So if you think we should, we definitely can read some. I absolutely adore Marx. I think he's one of the greatest writers and greatest philosophers ever. But I'm less sure about Marxism I think there is a big difference between Marx, the philosopher, and Marxism. Yeah? But in the Marxist analysis is all about class struggle, exploitation. Marx doesn't write about desire, and Marxist theorists also don't write about desiring. In the same way that Freud doesn't link desire to production, Marxists also don't link desire to production. Yeah? So Deleuze and Guattari take these two separate disciplines and see what happens when they come together. So, it is at work everywhere, functioning smoothly at times, at other times it fits and starts. What is fits and starts? You know, it's kind of machine. You know how you can start, if you have an old car and you switch the engine, it goes like grrrk, and it stops. Grrrk. That's, it fits and starts. So sometimes it works smoothly, and sometimes yeah. So, but it breathes, it hits, it eats. So it breathes. The machine breathes. What kind of machine breathes? What breathes? Your body breathes. You breathe. Yeah. So you eat, you breathe, you eat, you eat. Yeah. You eat. Okay. Now your car also eats. What your car eats?
Fuel.
Well, yeah, your car eats dinosaurs. So, yeah? You understand why?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so you feed dinosaurs to your car, and then it runs. Yeah? You eat an apple, for instance. Yeah? But it's basically the same thing. If you want your car to run, you need to feed it some dinosaurs, or some trees, or whatever, you know? If you want your body to run, you need to feed it some apples. Yeah? Now, the car, once it's ate, it has energy to do some tasks, and it also exhausts, so it has some stuff kind of out of it. The same thing happens with you. Yeah? You need to eat something, then you perform some tasks, and then some stuff coming out of you. So, in that sense, you are a machine. Yeah? But that also means that a machine, just like you are driven by desire, every machine is driven by desire. Yeah? What is so radical and nice about for me it's nice, I don't know, you might not agree, but what is so radical about the Deleuze and Guattari is that they don't see humans as a special case. For them, everything is machines, and humans are just one machine among many. On that level, you might say, they really are materialists. They don't believe in the soul. They don't believe in the divine spark, you know, like in Michelangelo. Here. So, you know, in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, the creation of Adam. So there is this Adam just was created, and God touching his finger, and in that way giving him a soul. Yeah. Now, for Deleuze and Guattari, it's just machines. Every machine needs a spark to operate. In the car, it's called a plug. Yeah? Every machine needs fuel. Every machine operates and at some point stops when it runs out of fuel, and every machine outputs some rubbish, you know, some exhaust, something. Everywhere, it or id is machines. Real ones. So we're not talking here about metaphors. They claim it's for real. It's not an image. Machines driving other machines. What is a machine driving other machines? Okay, well, anyone here drives? Okay. Anyone here uses a sat-nav when you drive? Yeah? Sat-nav, you know, your phone, Waze or Google Maps or something like that, yeah? Yeah? So, when I drive with a sat-nav, basically there is a little dot on the screen, and I just follow the dot. The dot then tells me where to go. There it says turn left and right, so I'm basically really operating as a machine. I'm following the instructions from my screen. So when they say machines driving other machines, it's me. The machine is called Daniel. Driving a machine is called my car. Following the instructions from my sat-nav that receives its directions from a satellite. Yeah? And it receives its coding and software from the Pentagon or something like that. Yeah? That is controlled by the United States military and various other satellites. So I am here just a little functionary in a big network of instructions that go from the American military through the satellites, through various engineering and software operations to my screen, and then I take these commands and transmit them through my body to the car, and that's how we move along. Yeah? So you see why it's legitimate for them to say, it's not a poetic license to say machines driving other machines, because when you are in the car and you're driving, you are a machine. And when you call Uber, the Uber driver spends 10 hours a day following the dot on the screen. It's simply an accident, not an accident. It's just so at the moment it's cheaper to use a human driver than an artificial intelligence driver. But it's just because it's still in development. Very, very soon there will be no need for a human driver, and it will be one machine driving another machine. Because already the Uber driver is essentially a machine following instructions from a machine. Yeah? So,
excuse me, how about this sentence? What a mistake to have ever said the E.
yeah. What a mistake to have ever said that it. That it. Because there is no one it. The it is everywhere where there is production. So they have no problem with the it, which is also it, but with the that, with the idea that there is only one desire, which is human psyche and repressed. Desire is everywhere. Yeah? Now you might ask, and this Uber driver that follows the dot on the screen, what is their desire? Because aren't they just being made into a soulless robot? Well, that's very interesting, because I was reading an interview with a journalist who spent a week working for this company, Lyft, in New York. And Lyft is another one like Uber, is a driving, it's basically an app that connects drivers with customers. And this journalist who spent the week driving for Lyft said that you get into this mindset of it's so gamified, you get points for every journey you made under a certain time. You're not only getting, let's say, your $5.90 plus tip, you also get some points. And you end up basically playing this game of collecting points, collecting stars, and do you know this expression, gamification? Yeah? Gamification. To gamify something is to make an activity, to use gaming strategies in various activities. So for instance, Anyone here learning a language with Duolingo? Excellent. You should. Everyone should. I think it's absolutely great. And, I've been using it for a few years. And it's very interesting how this app gamifies the process of learning a language. So you get points, you get stars, and suddenly I find myself like at 5 to midnight hectically doing the lesson because if I miss it, then I will lose a point, I will lose a star, you know? And then who needs these stars? I'm not a 5-year-old, but on some level I probably am because it just is engaging in this way. So the driver of the Uber car or of the Lyft car is driven not only by the financial necessity to make a living, that obviously is there, but also it's structured as a game, as a very libidinal pleasure thing. This is very, very clever. And the people who work in the Silicon Valley developing these apps, they understand very well both Freud and Deleuze and Guattari. They really figuring out how to link production with desire to make us do what they want us to do. Yeah? Not only because we get paid, but also because it is kind of fun to do. This is all very, very scary. It's really terrifying stuff. That's why I think we need to think about these things and try to understand them. Everywhere, it is machines, real ones, not figurative ones. Machines driving other machines. Machines being driven by other machines, with all the necessary couplings and connections. An organ machine is plugged into an energy source machine. Yeah. An organ machine is, for instance, you. The source machine is the apple. Yeah? You are plugged into the apple because the apple is your source of energy. You biting into an apple is like me putting a battery into a remote control. Without the battery, the remote control is nothing. I put the battery in, I plug the energy source into the organ machine, and this remote control becomes the extension of my hand. Yeah? Same thing happens when you buy an apple. You plug energy source machine into an organ machine. Yeah? The one produces a flow that the other interrupts. The apple, the battery, let's look at the battery first. The battery has electricity flow, yeah? But the electricity flow in the battery is, you know what the battery looks like. The electricity flow in the battery is not going anywhere, it's contained within the battery. You plug it into this, and suddenly the energy can flow from the battery through this device. Yeah? Now, the apple is also a battery. It has energy. Yeah? Where the energy came from? From the sun. We'll talk about it later. But the apple it's a battery that stores energy. You bite the apple, the energy flows into your organism. Yeah? That's what biting an apple means. Yeah? So it flows into your organism. The flow that was stored into the apple is now being released into your body. Yeah? So it's exactly like plugging this cable into the computer. Yeah? If I unplug this cable, then the energy is stopped. So in a sense, all life processes can be understood in terms of flows and stoppages. That could be a very interesting basic formulation to understand the psyche. You see how with Freud, the very basic configuration was desire and reality. Reality and pleasure. Do you remember? So, Deleuze and Guattari say we have a more basic way to understand the psyche and everything else. It's not reality and pleasure. It's flows and stoppages. It's flows and interruptions. Let's take one as a little example to look at this. So, for instance, let's look at something like this. Yeah. So there is this, let's say, mountain stream, water running down the mountain. Who is thinking about the water? There, yeah. Okay. So water running down the mountain. Why water running down the mountain very quickly? How water goes to the mountain in the first place? Rain, yes. Snow, yes. So snow or ice accumulates on the top of the mountain, then it melts, and water running down the mountain. Okay? So water running down the mountain is a flow. Okay. Now the flow gets interrupted at some points. So for instance, the water can be running down, and coming to a point like here, where suddenly there are stones. Yeah? So there is interruption. So the water has nowhere to run. It accumulates. At some point, it goes over the stones and gushes down as a waterfall. Yeah? So interruption accumulates energy. More and more water accumulates. Eventually, it goes over this barrier and gushes down with incredible force. If you stick a carbide there, you can generate electricity. Yeah? So flow and interruption of flows. The apple is a flow of energy that is being stored. Once you bite it, it's being released. The energy of the apple flows into you. Yeah? This energy, and where the energy came to the apple in the first place, as we said, from the sun. So basically, when you bite the apple, you eat sun energy. You eat light. Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I mean, the impossible, you mean it's from the sun, the energy.
Yes.
Like the impossible from the water or mineral.
From the water? Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, well, the apple is more, it's like the jar in Heidegger. Yeah? It's water, it's sunlight, it's earth, it's air. Yeah. It's all these things, absolutely, yeah. But the reason I was talking about the sun is because I'm thinking about, because we're kind of interested in the image, and I'm thinking about the photosynthesis, the process by which energy of the sun is converted into sugars. Yeah? And that's what happens. Why the apple is sweet? Because it, yeah, well, just how come the apple has sugars? Where is the sugar coming? The sugar is not coming from the water, it's not coming from the air or from the earth. The sugar is sun energy that the ability of the plant is able to convert this energy of the sun into carbohydrates. And that's what is called photosynthesis. Photo is light. Yeah? So photosynthesis is the ability of the plant to convert the energy of the sun into carbohydrates and store them as sugars.
The liquid and
Sugar?
Sugar can become liquid. What?
Well, sugar can be dissolved in liquid, yes. Yes.
And it's kind of like it's water.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, water, air, it's all part of the apple, but specifically the energy, you cannot live on water alone. Yeah? Because it's not in the,
So where do we get our energy? We basically get it from the sun. How? Survive the process of photosynthesis. What is interesting is, one second, is photosynthesis is essentially a photographic process. It's like the sun making an image in the plant via converting carbon into sugar, into carbohydrate. Yeah? Now there are molecules of carbon in the plant which are just charcoal, but the effect of light charges this carbon with electric charge that makes them into a carbohydrate. The molecule becomes a compound of carbon and hydrogen, and that happens under the influence of sunlight, and that's what we eat. That is our source of energy. And this is not, obviously you need all of this, you need air, you need water, but it is quite interesting how what we consume is basically sunlight converted to carbohydrates. Yeah? Now, the reason it's important is because what Deleuze and Guattari are talking about is a very materialist way of understanding life as a process of flows and interactions. So, it gets clearer in the next example. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth is the machine coupled with it. So, the mother and the baby, the mother and child, let's have a look at one of those. Okay, well, let's. In a mother and child situation like this, conservative woman. Seriously? Okay, let's leave that. In a mother and child situation, when there is a newborn baby, the breast of the mother is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth of the baby is a machine that sucks this milk. So it's two machines plugged together. Yeah, like if you ever saw how airplanes refuel in flight, did you ever see that? It's actually very beautiful. How there is this big jet that carries petrol, and fighter jets which kind of plug into its nipple and suck the petrol out of it. It's like a ballet in air. It's really amazing. There is a film, there is a Kubrick film, Dr. Strangelove, and the opening scene has this refueling in mid-air. It's very nice. So the mother and child is exactly like two airplanes refueling in mid-air. Yeah, it's this kind of thing. Sorry?
It was just an ad.
It was an ad, so we can. Okay, here we go. So you see how the mother flame throws this nipple down, and the jet goes and sticks its nozzle into it, and now refueling is taking place. It's pretty cool. Desiring production. Yeah? And is it sexual? It's kind of sexual as well. It will definitely.
Something dramatic.
Okay, fine. And then there is this example of the anorexic, the example of the anorexic, the mouth of the anorexic weavers between several functions. So, as an example, they say, well, how can we understand anorexia neurosis, which is another one of these psychological disorders that Freud treated in his patients? How can we understand anorexia from the perspective of a desiring machine? An anorexic person, they say, is someone who is uncertain about the function of their mouth. Is it the mouth for eating, or for defecating, for vomiting, yeah, or for talking, or for breathing, yeah? It's this kind of confusion about the function of the mouth. That's how you can understand anorexia in mechanical terms. So it's not about, what Freudian analysis might reveal is that you are anorexic because of the way your parents treated you as a child. Maybe you were told that you grow too fast, or maybe you thought that you wanted to remain a little child. You never wanted to grow, you always wanted to be a baby, and now you don't want to eat because you want to remain small. So there can be various interpretations of this, but they say, let's look at anorexia from a perspective of desiring machines. It is a mechanical problem of the mouth, a machine, which is unclear about its function. What it's supposed to do, to eat, or to vomit, or to speak, or to breathe. And this confusion about the function, that's what we came to know anorexia. So, for every organ machine, an energy machine. So every organ, and what is an organ? Well, your body is an organ, yeah? For every organ, there is an energy machine. Every remote control needs its source of energy, and that includes humans, yeah? So we're not talking here about this notion that humans are made in God's image, or something like that. It is something very, very basic. Judge Schreber, who, it's a very famous story that Freud is using. Judge Schreber was a famous judge in Vienna, let's say the top judge of the court, who had schizophrenia, and he was hospitalized many times, and he wrote a book about his experiences of basically being completely crazy, and he spoke about sunbeams coming out of his ass. He was convinced that is the case. The solar anus, and this expression, the solar anus, which is very famous, and you should know it. Is coming from that, there is this English expression, we say sometimes that he thinks that sun is shining out of his ass. You know this expression? Well, now you do. Yeah? So if someone is thinking very highly of themselves, yeah, you might say, well, he thinks that he or she thinks that the sun is shining out of his ass. But in the case of Judge Schreber, that was the case. The sun was inside his anus. That's where the light came from. That kind of also connects to the pleasure principle of the Freudian baby, this omnipotency of the baby, the one that just, wants to just defecate and let it all out, But they say this Judge Schreber with his solar anus is also a kind of a machine. He feels something, he produces something, and he can explain this process theoretically. He wrote a whole book about it. And then a very famous sentence. A schizophrenic out for a walk is a better model than a neurotic lying on the analyst's couch. So, I want to explain to you something about schizophrenia. Do you know what schizophrenia refers to? It's a very specific kind of a mental disturbance. Schizophrenia is a split personality disturbance. Do you know what is split personality? When we talk about someone who has a split personality, is when you are several people, not just one. Now, in very extreme clinical cases, someone might have a split personality when one day they believe that they are Napoleon or something like that. Yeah. But what is important is that you are already multiple personalities. And I want one thing to be absolutely clear. Deleuze and Guattari talk a lot about schizophrenia. But it's not because they want to glamorize mental illness. I know that some people think that, you need to be mad to be an artist, so let's just all be mad and make great art. This is not what it's about. They're not saying that it's great to have schizophrenia as a clinical condition. Not at all. Schizophrenia as a disease is a terrible illness. And this is not saying that, just make yourself schizophrenic and then, your career as an artist is guaranteed. They use it as a metaphor, even though they say it's not a metaphor. It is a metaphor. I'm sorry, Deleuze and Guattari. It is a metaphor. They kind of say, you are already schizophrenic just by living in the capitalist society. Because, we all know, yes.
As an aside, it's really interesting to read this because from what I understand with schizophrenia, it seems to be like the opposite of Parkinson's disease.
In what way?
Well, one is a deficiency of dopamine, and the other is like excess of dopamine. And dopamine, of course,
Very
is sort of
interesting.
that reward and pleasure.
And dopamine is pleasure.
Yeah,
So schizophrenia is the excess of pleasure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they're saying, for pleasure to make sense, you should go out and walk and
Yeah.
be in the mood.
Yeah, very nice. I love that. You should put it in your essay. That's really great.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the way that they're using schizophrenia, are they specifically referencing to like the split personality aspect of it?
Yeah. And I want to explain in both ways. So, for instance, you remember how we said earlier, Lisa Marie, that where is home?
Yes.
Now, this could be taken as an example of a split personality, which is not about being clinically ill. It's like home can be here, and home can be in the Caribbean. Home can be in China, and home can be in London. And how we really are several personalities all at once. So, I have this, part of me who is a lecturer and a teacher. There is other parts of me which perhaps don't make any appearance around this table. Yeah? And how we're not just one self that we carry with us, but we are different selves which we adapt or bring out for different situations. Yeah? It is very possible that when you go home to spend time with your family, you bring out a very different self to the one you use when you install work in here or in the evening show or in the seminar. Yeah? And so you are already several people. You already juggle several personalities. So I think it's very interesting what Lisa Marie was saying, how the schizophrenic out for a walk is a better model. It's better to have this split personality and go for a walk, fresh air, change of scenery, some flowers, maybe some apples, then to go to Dr. Freud, to Professor Freud, and lie on the couch and talk about, wanting to kill your daddy and have sex with your mom. Yeah, that's what they say.
a breath of fresh air, a relationship with the outside world. This walk outdoors is about connection with the world. Now, the meaning of schizophrenia is especially potent in relation to capitalism, I think they say. And we will see a bit later. They kind of say that in the capitalist society, to be schizophrenic or to have this multiple personality is actually a rational response to the environment you are in. In order to survive in capitalism, you need to have a split personality. You need to have one personality for your boss and another for your loved ones. You cannot take the same personality with which you are at home with your partner to work. You need to be able to have a very different personality for that. So when you go to Guattari, who is, I told you, is a psychotherapist, and you say, well, I have a split personality, I need help. Guattari might say, well, it's not you who needs help, it's society who needs help. You are fine. You're reacting in a healthy way to an environment which is completely fucked up and unhealthy. Yeah? You respond by a split personality to a situation where you need to do it in order to survive. And if you want to get better, change society. I'm involved in psychotherapy. I work as a psychotherapist, and in addition to my work as a lecturer, because I'm completely schizophrenic in this regard. And one of the conversations in the British psychotherapy is whether, to what extent, the social reality of the client's life has to be taken into account in therapy work. You know, people often talk about being depressed, for instance, but what if their depression, what if the causes of their depression are financial? What if they're depressed not because of unresolved problems with mommy and daddy, but because they have a crushing debt from being a student? Yeah? Or because they lost their job, or because they live in insecure housing, or because their rent takes all their wages, you know? What then? How are you going to help them? And maybe it's kind of unhelpful to say, okay, well, you know, let's talk about your problems. Let's try to understand in what way your upbringing may be depressed. What makes you depressed, perhaps, is policies and finances and capitalism. Yeah. So it's one of the topics that every time you open a journal of psychotherapy, or go to a psychotherapy conference, that will be mentioned. There is now. What is interesting about Guattari is that apart from working with Deleuze and writing several absolutely amazing books, he was also a practicing therapist. And he had a clinic outside Paris, the Bordeaux clinic, where their approach was anti-psychiatry. Now, anti-Oedipus, anti-psychiatry, you already know what anti means, is this kind of countercultural drive. So in this clinic, the assumption was that most mental disturbances people suffer from are caused by the society, not by the individual. So, for instance, every morning in this clinic, they would have a meeting between all the members of the staff, the doctors and the nurses, and all the patients. And they would divide the roles for the day between everyone equally. So there would be no hierarchy. The doctors wear white overalls and stethoscopes, and the patients are sort of, chained to the bed or wearing some kind of
blue uniforms. Everyone was wearing the same clothes, and they would divide all the roles between everyone. So someone would go to the market to buy provisions, someone would work in the garden, someone would look after the visitors, someone would, wash the windows, and whether you are a doctor or a client or a patient, all the roles would be divided between everyone. And then everyone works during the day, doing whatever is needed in the clinic. Now, the thinking behind it was that when there is that most mental problems that people suffer from, like schizophrenia, like neurosis, like paranoia, are caused by the hierarchical organization of society. And once this hierarchical organization is removed, there is much less need for these disturbances. And it kind of, it was an amazing experiment, and it did work, and there are still now anti-psychotherapy movements, both in France and in the UK. In the UK, it was mostly driven by R.D. Lyne, the Scottish psychotherapist. But it's very interesting how this philosophy, that in order to help someone's psychological problems, you need to look at the social problems. I believe this is Pat. I think this is Pat. You? Yes, hello. Hello. Excellent. So, okay, we're going to stop here. I will ask you to read to finish reading this section, design production, and read also section 2. Let me just go. You might not want to look at it. This is Deleuze.
I have
also read The Body Without Organs. Read Desire and Production and The Body Without Organs. That will take you up to page 16. The next one, The Subject of Enjoyment, is all about pleasure. So if you want to read further, I will not hold it against you. Okay, we're going to stop here. Yeah.
No.